On this episode of the Elite Podcast, we speak to 15-time WAKO World Champion and Karate Combat athlete, Everill.
I threw a side kick and my opponent had come forward at the same time. It flexed my toes up like that and it snapped my ankle. And I heard it go. The medic had sprayed my ankle and we were ready to resume the fight. I ended up having to change my strategy. Got through that fight, I'd won. As soon as we'd gone off and the adrenaline had started to come down, I couldn't walk. My dad had to carry me out of there. It was the next day where I had to fight again. You can see it as pressure, or you could see it as an opportunity. I see opportunity, and that's the difference between the ones that succeed in those moments and the ones that fail.
Elijah, welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Really excited, yeah.
Well done for finding the place in Liverpool finally.
Yeah, it was a bit tricky there with the parking situation, but managed to sort it out. So, yeah, all good. Delighted to be here, mate.
Brilliant, mate. It's a good city, actually. You have to check the place out afterwards.
Definitely. I've not spent a lot of time in Liverpool, really. I came once on a school trip years ago, and it was to watch Everton play Swansea or something. It was all the football team that went on this school trip, and I've not been back since, so it's been a while.
So, yeah, it's changed a lot since then as well.
Yeah, I'd love to spend a bit more time here, definitely.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it. I moved up here about 7 years ago.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Absolutely love it here.
Wicked.
So today we're just going to have a bit of a casual chat, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
I just wanted to speak to you. Obviously, I know you extensively. You've been my student since you're 4 years of age. We're good friends and business partners now. So I know you probably better than most people on the planet, apart from your immediate family.
Yep.
And I just thought it'd be great to have you on. We can just start from the very start, really. Like go back to when you were younger. Talk about what training you've done, what motivates you, how your day looks, and what you do that's different to everybody else.
Yeah.
So if we could go back to the start, if that's all right, to when young little Elijah Everill, when you first started and what that looked like and stuff.
Yeah, well, like most kids, when they're 4, 5, 6 years old, I was just absolutely mesmerised by the Power Rangers and the Ninja Turtles, and I was always sat in front of the TV watching them do all the cool moves and everything, and I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to be a Power Ranger, and I remember a leaflet of yours coming through the door for Lee Matthews Black Belt Academy.
There,
yeah, definitely. Leaflet coming through the door.
Did we do an assembly or did you just get the leaflet?
We did do an assembly, but I was already a member by the time you'd done an assembly. Yeah,
surrounded you. You had no choice. You were going to join up.
Exactly. It was destiny, mate. It was destiny. So the leaflet came through the door, and then I remember my mom was really excited about it, and I was as well. You know, when she told me, she was like, "Look, there's a martial arts school advertised here. Maybe you can start doing some training." And you know, I was so excited. But when my mom had spoke to my dad about it, my dad at first wasn't a big fan of the idea of me doing anything related to fighting, because my dad had a bit of a rough upbringing. He was from Birmingham, and you know, basically all his life he was fighting. So the last thing he would want is for his son to be doing the same thing, and you know, in a violent sport. He didn't really know what the martial arts was about. It's actually anti-violence.
Of course it is.
It's the other way around. It's so you can prevent yourself getting into those situations. But obviously his immediate thoughts were, I don't want my son punching anyone. I don't want him getting punched. So he wasn't the biggest fan. But as usual, whenever my mum or my dad, you know, whenever there was like a decision to be made, my mum was always able to sway my dad.
One of few people then, because when your dad when he makes his mind for about something.
My dad, if anyone knows my dad, he's the most stubborn guy in the world.
Yeah.
Love him to pieces, but he's very stubborn, and the only person that was ever really able to influence him at all was my mum. Even I can't influence him in anything. It's my mum, and she sort of brought him round to the idea of bringing me to my first class. We went down there, tried it out, and I think when my dad saw what it was all about, like I started with the Little Ninjas program at the time. Obviously nowadays it's Little Soldiers, but we started as the Little Ninjas. He saw the amount of fun that all the kids were having, that I was meeting other kids, you know, interacting with them, socializing with them, building my motor skills at the same time, learning the core values of not only martial arts but how you should act as a person. Being respectful, being disciplined, being dedicated to something. You're learning all of that from a very early age. And I firmly believe that martial arts is the best thing you could possibly get your kids into. I really do, because, you know, it's set the way for me. And from that point onwards, really, my mum and dad were all in. I was all in, and just never looked back.
Yeah, when you say they were all in, I can clarify that they were all in 100%. You weren't dropped off and then picked up afterwards, or dropped off and hanging around for countless hours as a bit of a after school club. Your dad was there with you, your mum and dad, but especially your dad as well, because your mum had other duties that she was doing, looking after you guys, and he was there every single class, intensely sat on the sidelines, mentally doing everything with you, and you would be looking over to him, and so it was like a collective training session, and I'm sure that afterwards you would have been debriefing, talking about what you did, valuable lessons you learned today, what 100%. You did wrong, because I know this is how you are now, and I know what your dad's like. There's constant reflecting back, isn't there, and looking at what can be made better.
Of course, yeah.
So,
sorry. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, is being the elite, and that's what the elites do. Even from that early age, it was always. We say the word destiny. I think it was destiny for me to reach this level. It was only going to be one way. I remember my dad saying to me, he was like, whatever he said, he told me that he said this to my mom, and he was like, whatever my son does, he's going to be the best in the world at it. It doesn't matter if it's football, doesn't matter if it's kickboxing, doesn't matter whatever it is, dancing, he's going to be the best. And that's what the goal was. As soon as I said, this is what I want to do, that was the goal then for not only me, but for my family to get me there. And they were the most supportive, best parents you could ever ask for. They did absolutely everything, drove me all over the country, traveled all over the world with me, did everything they possibly could to get me to the level where I'm at now. It's not something that's happened overnight. There's an awful amount of sacrifice. Even just going back to when, you were saying about my dad bringing me to the evening classes and stuff. My dad had turned down pay rises.
Just about to say that.
He turned down pay rises, different jobs, like where he was going to be getting paid nearly double the money. But he said, no, I can't do it. I've got to take my son to martial arts. Not many dads would do that. My mom was working 2 jobs. She was a hairdresser, and then she was working at the MOD as well. So it was like, mom working 2 jobs. Dad had turned down pay rises and stuff to make sure he could travel with me and take me everywhere I needed to get to. Just the ultimate sacrifice to be the best. And that's what people don't see.
No, and people don't realise that. I mean, it's very, very difficult as a child, because you can't drive, you can't get yourself about, especially as a young child. I mean, when you get a bit older, you're like a teenager or so, you can get yourself about, you can be resourceful. But as a kid, developing those habits by your parents, because they were your parents' habits, obviously you must have cemented that into your mindset. Yeah,
100%. And I could see the sacrifices that they were putting in, and that meant even more that I had to do the same, and I'd have to work for it and make sure that all of that sacrifice doesn't get wasted.
100%. Otherwise, it's for nothing, isn't it? Yeah,
it's for nothing. And I'm still doing it now to this day, because I know what they've put in. And that is why I owe it to myself and owe it to my family to be the absolute best in what I do. Yeah. And I've always had that mindset ever since. And, even going back to the early days, it was, my mum and dad were instilling that into me, that I was born to be better than everybody else. I was born to be greater. Even we'd come home from training. I remember a lot of the car journeys that coming to and from the club, and my dad.
Times they are with your children as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I remember whenever I come home from a class, my dad would always say, like, he'd give me a percentage. He'd say, if I'd performed really well, he'd be like, you're 100% tonight, son. I couldn't fault you. You're brilliant. You did all your exercises perfectly. You were switched on. You sparred well. And then other days I wouldn't be as on it. He'd say, I'll give you about a 97. You weren't on it tonight. Yeah. And it was things like that. I was always trying to get 100. I was always trying to impress him. I knew he was watching, and I was always trying to go one better every single time. I was never like comfortable. I was never allowed to get comfortable. I was always striving for that little bit more.
A level of accountability all the time. So every single class you did, there was accountability, and you were trying to excel. So that's the difference between just showing up to classes, isn't it? I know they say 80% of success is showing up, but the other 20% is putting the graft in and then getting ahead of the game and doing a bit more than everybody else does, 100%, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the difference, because, my dad could have easily have sat there and read the paper. Yeah. Or gone out and had a chat with his mates. He
wouldn't look down at his phone.
He's watching every single move that I do, and that's because he wants me to be the best. and it hasn't served us too wrong. So,
well, that's it. And watching you, he watched you execute every point you've ever fired in a training session, which is why he was able, even though he wasn't a fighter and I wasn't there sometimes, your dad was able to jump in and coach you to as good a standard as anyone because of his depth of knowledge and understanding of not just yourself, but you know, I'm not sure people know, but you analysed, and you always did as a kid, didn't you?
Yeah.
Your opponents. You want to talk a little bit about that, about your analysing of opponents and making sure you're setting yourself up for success so you could get the advantage?
Absolutely. I think it's imperative in anything that you do, whether that be business. You've got to analyse what's going to work best for you in what situation. If it's fighting, if it's football, you need to know your opponents. You need to know them very well, almost as well as you know yourself. You've got to know your opponents and you have to do your homework. Again, we go back to the word elite. This is what the elites do. The good will just turn up and do what they do. But the elites will have everything set in stone the week before, 2 weeks before. They'll know exactly who they're going to be up against. They'll know exactly what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are. And I used to do that all the time. I used to use SWOT analysis, even from when I was a little kid. I'd watch all the people. If they'd beaten me before, I'd put you on my list.
Yeah, that's right. Talk about this list as well, because you had this as a kid.
You go on my list, and you know, if anyone had ever beaten me in a competition, you'd go on my list.
Yeah.
It could be anything. You'd be on my list for beating me to 1 point in the gym. You'd be on my list, and until I tick it off, until I put it right, I wouldn't be content. I wouldn't be able to sleep. Wouldn't be able to eat.
That's good.
It's just that like winning instinct that I just always had.
And that instinct as well can definitely be harnessed, can't it?
100%. Yes.
It's got to be shown, though. I believe you can only understand this level of competitiveness if you're around people that are highly competitive.
Yeah.
If you're not highly competitive, then you don't stand a chance. You are literally bait to everybody else around you, aren't you? People are unconsciously incompetent and have no idea the level of obsessiveness top level elite athletes have, or elite business people, or elite anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've always gone that extra mile in terms of analysing my opponents, studying, doing the homework, to prevent myself from ever feeling that horrible feeling of defeat and losing. I can't stand it. It's the worst thing in the world. I absolutely despise losing. So I'll do absolutely everything I can to make sure that it doesn't happen. I'll watch a guy for 10 hours straight if I have to on my TV, and I'll break down his movements. I'll look for when he likes to attack. I'll look for when he likes to kick, when he likes to punch. And I'll break it down to a point where you cannot beat me because I know absolutely every move that you're going to make.
And also, let me add to that as well. If you are of that mindset, you don't just do it out of discipline. You love doing it, don't you?
Yes.
It's obsessive. It's enjoyable. You want to be doing it. You're not happy or comfortable until you've expended as much energy as you've got and more in that area, in that arena, to try and get as much knowledge as possible.
It is. It's addictive. It's that you're constantly chasing that win. That it's like that win is in reach, and you've got to do the work to get it. So you're constantly doing the things that you know that nobody else is doing, and that gives you almost another burst of energy.
It does,
because you know nobody else is doing it, and you're like, but I'm doing it. And it just brings it even more out. Brings the greatness out of you even more. Like David Goggins talks about taking souls and really putting himself in a situation where he's like the alpha. He knows no one else is able to do what he does, and he stays callous in his mind. And that's the same thing I try and do as well. I know nobody else is prepared to do or put the time in like I am. So I know that when I go on there and I fight the guy, I'm going to have total and utter confidence.
Absolutely. And you didn't believe in overtraining. There's always something that can be done.
Exactly.
Rest days happen when you're ill. And Christmas days and Christmas mornings are a good day for what?
They're good for training,
what
mate.
do we always do, innit? We'd be all posting stuff up on Christmas morning. It's still a habit that I still do now. Just to get that one little edge on someone when they wouldn't be doing it. That's
what people don't understand. They think that, missing one session ain't going to make a difference. Of course it is. Of course it is. It comes down to that competitiveness. You know the other person isn't doing what you're doing. It's not even about the training session. It's about what's up here.
Absolutely.
It's about what's in there.
It's allowing that mindset to slip in more and more. That one session you miss is okay. Because if you do it the once, then it's okay. the next time.
Yeah, or if it's okay on Christmas, it'll be okay on a birthday.
That's it.
And then it'll be okay on an anniversary, and then it'll be okay on something else, and it will just snowball. Before you know it, you've missed 10 sessions.
Exactly.
And then you go in there and you're 10 sessions less prepared than your opponent is, and you can't afford to let that happen.
And that compounds over time.
Compounds.
That could be over the course of, 10 sessions, could be over the course of a year. What about 10 years when you're in the finals of something against someone else who's
and
done
you know better than anyone, Lee, as well, that how small the margins are.
Tiny.
1 point can be 1 point sometimes. You're telling me 10 sessions working on something might not have changed that outcome.
Absolutely.
By 1 point.
And let's talk about pressure and dealing with pressure as well, because this is something that you're really good at.
Yeah.
And people witness it all the time, especially, when the football's on every bloody 2-4 years in England, go to penalties and then spoon it and just miss the goal by miles.
Yeah.
And
Don't bring me back to that France game, Lee.
And these guys have drilled it so much in practice, yet when it comes to the moment to do it, when it matters, they miss it. Why do you think that is? Because and I've seen you do this loads, and you were able to do this at quite a young age, were able to harness your abilities still under great pressure and be a cool cat and get that winning point and in that millisecond and not lose your composure or coolness. I know we spoke about this, so I'd like you to...
Definitely. It's about enjoying the moment and knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
There's two ways you can look at it. You can either look at it as... you can see it as pressure, right? Which most of the time that has a negative attachment to it, the word pressure. Or you could see it as an opportunity. Whereas I see opportunity. I think that's the difference between the ones that succeed in those moments and the ones that fail.
Absolutely.
Is that they look at the positives, not the negatives. If someone goes up to take the winning penalty, right? And they're already thinking, oh, what if I miss? That's what most people are thinking in that situation. What if I miss?
Thinking of the downside, what could happen?
Thinking of the downside, what could happen? Well, what could happen if you go and score?
Exactly. Be the hero.
And that's how I always thought of it. I was like, I could go in there, I could win this. Most of the time, it'd come down in like team events and things like that.
This is what I'm talking about. That's the added pressure as well.
Of course it is, because it's not just you, it's the rest of your team that, you lose, you're letting them down. You win, you're going to be the hero.
Even more so than when you're an individual, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always saw that as like a massive opportunity for me to go and show everybody how great I am. So I was made for those moments, and I was prepared for those moments, and I thrive in them. I enjoy them. And I think most people don't. They try and shy away from them, whereas I'm like, give me that opportunity. Brilliant. Put me in last, and I won't let you down.
You want to be the anchor man, don't you?
Put me in there.
Be that one when you're down, scraping those points back, and then getting all the glory.
And then most of the time, you are thinking that way. Your opponent isn't. They're like the 99% of all the others that are going, oh, what if I lose? And then you have that alpha male mentality, like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to destroy you. It doesn't matter if you're winning by 5, 6, 7 points. You got a lead. I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to win this. And that's usually what happens. You usually end up doing it.
And I've seen you do it to really good fighters. Yeah. And you just see, even though they're leading, you can just see you starting to take over and the tide just turning, and you can see it in their eyes. Yeah. And then they just lose momentum as you gain momentum and strength. Yeah. And the whole fight just flips then, doesn't it? And you can see every time, he's done it again. Yeah. He's done it again.
I'd say it's been a good 4 or 5 times. We've had it like
key moments on big events.
Yeah. Well. I mean, we had it at the World Championships a few times when GB hadn't won it for I think it was 12 years or something. Yeah. And then we ended up winning the adults team event. It happened to me last year in the Europeans as well. I think we were drawing going into the last round, and I was the one who came on and won it. We've had it in the VFT Europe versus USA. That was the sweet one for me to come back. We were losing that one by 2, and I came back, and I think we ended up winning by 9. So it's just being present in that moment and trying to understand that you're there to enjoy that process. That is what all the work is for. You've put yourself in that position to be great. So don't let it slip.
Absolutely. It's brilliant. Some wise words there. I think people listening to this will understand already the mindset difference. If they're not doing this, you've got no chance. Yeah. You're just going to be numbers in the draw sheet. Yeah. You've got no chance of winning. Yeah. You might get yourself a 2nd or 3rd, but you're not going to be prosperous and beat people with that type of mindset. Yeah. And what I would say is people that are around people like this constantly, and this becomes your norm, you pull other people up around you then, don't they? They look up to you, they see how you're behaving, because the approach that you're describing is obviously how I approach business, how I approach when I fought, how I approach my schools, how I approach everything. And that's why you can succeed, and that's how you can bring others up.
Yeah,
it's leading from the front, isn't it? It's proper leading from the front.
And it's, like you say, surrounding yourself with people who think the same as you. And if you haven't got those people that are around you that are that level of greatness, you know, these days with things like YouTube and you've got podcasts and things like that have been, many of the greats in their sports have been filmed doing podcasts and talking about moments like this. I listen to them relentlessly, Lee, all the time.
And it's like, that's like having a personal interview with someone, one-on-one, isn't it? The books you can read, the audios you can listen to, the podcasts you can listen to.
Yeah.
If you're getting this positive the voice all the time, telling you over and over again what they're doing, you're going to learn that.
It's all out there. It's a touch of a button on your phone screen. Everyone can do it. Everyone can access it, and it's just whether you let it hit home and really understand it. And you know, I listened to Kobe Bryant was the best. I think he had probably the best mentality of a sportsman I'd ever known.
What is that then? Do you want to?
Is the way he's so intellectual, so clever. The way he speaks is just amazing, and obviously he's got a ton of experience in basketball. He was one of the best basketball players of all time. And the main thing that he's famous for was his Mamba mentality. And Mamba mentality meaning that was the shift from being Kobe Bryant to becoming the Black Mamba, which was a different person.
Is that his like alter ego?
It was his alter ego. Yeah. So, you know, he'd have Kobe Bryant things to deal with on the outside. You know, it might be family things and, you know, taking his daughter to her basketball practice or whatever he was doing. But then when it's time to go to the court or when it's time to train, then he'd flick the switch. I use that a lot, actually. That term of flick the switch. I really like that because you can flick the switch and become something totally different. And that's what Kobe does. Yeah. He described it as like Maximus Decimus Meridius when he lifts up the dirt and feels the dirt and he says it's like it's go time.
Yeah,
and
you literally do.
I love that, and I have the same thing in a different way, but it all stemmed from that, where you're able to just shift from being Elijah to something else when you're on the mats and have that dominance, you know, because it's important that you uphold the values of being a good person, being a martial artist, showing respect to everybody. You need to be like that on the outside. That's important. But when you're on the mat, you're just not to be messed with.
Yeah,
and that's what Kobe did so well. He was just that alpha male. He did it so well. Tom Brady as well as another great one. Mayweather, Cristiano Ronaldo. I listen to people like that all the time that are like the elites of the elite.
Absolutely. And you certainly do. You literally, like, you're possessed. So people that know you and that may have seen you at the club when you interact with the parents, because you're a super professional guy. And you live how you talk, and you know, you walk the walk, you talk the talk. But when you're at a tournament and you're about to fight, you can't talk to you. Yeah. You are in a different zone. You're not doing anything else. You're in your own space. Talk us through what you do pre-fight to get you into that, because I'm sure now, you know, the psychology that switch can be flicked quite quickly. But you would have had to have gone through a process over years to have built yourself to get used to, like, this is me fighting now, this is what I've got to do.
Yeah.
What, do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. And it does take a lot of practice.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice to be able to just zone in on what you want and lock in on what you've got to do. But usually if I turn up to a tournament or if I've got a fight, then I won't want to really talk to anyone or interact with anyone for a good 20, 25 minutes before half an hour. So I've got time to really just be with my own thoughts and channel all of that energy, because I think a lot of people neglect that part of the game where they'll go and warm up. They'll warm up physically, but they don't warm up the main muscle.
And because they're nervous, they don't warm up properly as well.
No. And obviously warming up is, you have to do it. You have to get your body warm and ready for battle. But if your mind's not ready for battle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how. So I'll go away from everybody. I'll put myself in, you know, where everybody's warming up. You won't find me there. I'll be somewhere else on my own. I like be on my own. I'll have my headphones on. I'll be listening to those people who I just mentioned a minute ago.
So you listen to people talking in audios rather than music?
Yeah. Maybe if there's some music in the background, but really it's audios that I listen to successful people and their words. That seems to hit home more for me than like putting a track on. Like, I'd rather listen to somebody talking to me. It's almost like they are talking to me, like they're delivering the speech to me before I go out there to fight. Yeah. So I prefer that. I'll spend probably 10, 15 minutes just with my eyes closed, listening, taking it all in. Then I'll start my warm-up, and I'll only do the same routine of techniques. I don't do anything crazy. I'll just do the same routine of techniques. I just drill the basics that I'm going to be working on during the fight. If there's anything that I really have to go over technically, say if it's an opponent that's a really good kicker, I might practice a few like defenses on the leg or moving my feet a little bit more. But other than that, really, then that's it, and I just go to business. But when we're on the mat, that's when the shift really happens.
Yeah.
So I'll do my trigger, and that's when you activate that trigger, then it's like, okay, the
that's
switch.
What you do at the moment.
The switch has been flicked. Yeah.
Yeah.
My way of doing it, I come onto the mat. I won't look at the opponent. I don't need to look at them. I know exactly who they are. They're not important. Yeah. I'll walk up and down, take deep breaths, and then when it's time to go and the referee says like, right, fighters to the center, and I'll turn. My coach will be there. I'll go down, up, forward with my gloves. And then I turn around and I try to make myself look big. So I'll move my arms right behind my head, really stretch out, make myself look tall, just to impose a little bit of a threat on the opponent, just to make myself look more dominant. Right in front of them, I'll look them dead in the eye, and then we start fighting.
That point, then,
once I've done that, that's it. Then I'm in the zone. And nothing else matters. I'm not worried about anybody else. The only person I'm focused on is just that person.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's hard to get out of that then. You're in it.
Until that's difficult.
Yeah, until the tournament is done, until you've got the win, and it's like, right, finished, no more fights today. That's when you can sort of, it gradually eases off. But once you're in that zone, you just don't talk to me.
Absolutely.
just let me do my thing. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you literally are like you're possessed by the gods of war or something when you fight. It's so much so that you actually fought. I don't know if many people know this, but you fought with a broken ankle, didn't you?
Yeah.
But do you want to tell us about that? When that was and what happened with that?
Yeah. So that was in the Junior European Championships in Spain.
How old are you?
2015 or 16.
16.
Yeah. 15, 16, around that age, and I'd fought my first fight against the top guy in the division as well, the Italian.
First, did you?
Yeah, it was a tough one. I was like, the draw came out the day before. I was like, okay,
you got to beat everyone if you're going to win.
I got to beat him at some point, right?
Exactly.
So we fought the first fight, and I was winning. I got through the first 2 rounds. I was winning, and it was in the last round where I threw a side kick, and my opponent had come forward at the same time. So it was sort of like the momentum of his body was like crashing on my...
Push the foot back.
Yeah. It flexed my toes up like that, and it snapped my ankle. And I heard it go.
Did you?
I heard it go. Obviously, I had a couple of minutes for the medic to come over and check it all out and everything. But I said I was okay. Obviously, pumped with adrenaline and everything. This was points fighting, yeah. And the medic had sprayed my ankle, and we were ready to resume the fight. I ended up having to change my strategy because I was that hurt, I couldn't really blitz. You know how dynamic I am.
Yeah.
I couldn't really blitz, I couldn't move. So I was just trying to hang on, really.
Just for that fight to get through it?
Yeah, just to get through it. And then I could really see what was wrong then, because I didn't know the extent of the injury, how bad it was, how serious it was, but I was in pain. So anyway, I got through that fight. I'd won. It was very close. It was like 1 by 1 or 2. And then it was the next, really, as soon as we'd gone off and the adrenaline had started to come down a bit, I was like, my God, I can't even walk. Like, we were trying to go back to the bus. So we were trying to get out of the stadium and go back to the bus. And my dad had to carry me out of there because I couldn't walk. I was like hobbling. I had my arm around him, and he was just like...
So luckily, no more fights that day. Then it was
no more fights
day.
that day. It was the next day we were out to fight again, and people were just looking at me like, "What has he done? Like, what's happened here?" So we had the rest of the night off. Woke up the next morning. My ankle was black and blue.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it was swelled up like this, like double the size, black and blue. My dad took one look at it. He was like, "Son, you're not fighting today. Like, we just got to know when to call it a day. It's not your tournament. It just hasn't gone our way this time. You'll come back stronger. Come back next year's the World Championships." And I was like, nah, I need to fight today. I need to go on there. And if the person that I'm fighting today knows that I haven't turned up, because they're all going to want that. That was the thing. I was like, my opponent, they might beat me. I'm on one leg. I got nothing to lose, nothing to prove. I'm on one. If someone beats me today, I'm on one leg.
Getting on the list though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 100%. Oh, they went on the list. Yeah. But if you know, if I'm injured like that, I ain't got nothing to lose. But they're not just gonna have a walkover. I don't let people do that. You know, you just pull out of a fight and then people have a walk. I don't like doing that. If I'm able to fight, I will fight. So I got on the mats and I fought the fight. I ended up fighting. I was doing 3 divisions that week, so I went all the way.
Yeah.
And I think we worked out that it was 13 fights on a broken ankle that I had.
And just to clarify, that it wasn't just a bad foot; it was broken.
It was broken, fully broken. So
after the tournament,
yeah. So I got through the competition, doing the best I could. Like I said, I couldn't move, couldn't kick, couldn't blitz, couldn't do anything that I'm good at. I won the continuous.
In the continuous,
I won continuous. Yeah. So I ended up getting the gold medal, becoming European champion, hobbling around all week as well. And then when I got home, went to the hospital to get it checked out, and they told me that it had broken. It was quite a severe break, and then the tissue damage was horrendous because I'd continued fighting. They said that the tissue damage was like really bad, so I needed to take some time out and stuff. And I went back home, reassessed, but then I was still training. I was swimming instead of running, or you know, or I was biking as well, because all that's like low impact stuff. I was sat in a chair doing bag work within the space of like 3 days. I'd got home from the tournament and I was like sat on a chair like this, just hitting the bag, throwing punches, because I couldn't move around on it, but I was still able to do something.
There's always something you can do, isn't there?
There's always something that you can do, and I was already looking to go again in the new year when my ankle was going to be healed. So I had about 3-4 months, and I came back from that and then continued where I left off, really. But yeah, it's just having that mindset that you're not gonna give in when things get hard. That's what everyone would have been waiting for me to say. My ankle's broken and I'm not going to continue with the competition. All my opponents would have loved that.
Yeah.
But I still got on there and said, well, you know, you're still going to have to beat me today. If you want to get into the next round, you're still going to have to turn up and beat me, whether I'm on 1 leg, 2 legs, balancing on my hands. You're going to have to beat me.
Brilliant, mate. And then moving on then from that, a couple of years, so you moved up then to the adults, didn't you, a couple of years later?
Yeah.
And you can only describe your arrival in the adults basically as a dominance.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's arguable, really. I think if you just need to look at what you actually did. Do you want to just go over as an adult what you did? Your best year, was that pre-COVID? Was it post-COVID?
Yeah, that would have been my best year, 100%.
Which one? What did you do?
2019. Yeah, so 2019, I won 11 open weights, 11 grand champions.
That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what events? You just want to reel them off, because these are the biggest events in the world as well.
Yeah,
aren't they?
so within that 12 months, I think I won, off the top of my head here, going Golden Glove, Athens Challenge, Point Fighting Cup, Irish Open, Best Fighter WAKO World Cup. I won US Open. There's a tournament in Guatemala that I won the open weight in. Tournament in Mexico that I won the open weight in. I won Flanders Cup, Bristol Open, and there might have been 1 or 2 others, but there was a big list. I basically had a dominant year. I won everything.
Unbelievable. You won everything. You didn't lose. Did you? Lose one fight.
I was
hardly losing points in some of the events. Were you?
I was 10 spreading almost everybody.
Yeah.
I had a very good ratio of 10 spreading, getting rid of people.
That's absolutely unbelievable. And then the climax of that must be the Irish Open, because
Yeah.
that is, as kids, we took you there as kids, didn't we?
Yes.
And we've been going, we went every year.
Yeah.
And then you went there. Luckily, you went there when you did, because has there been one since COVID?
That hasn't.
Because they closed it because of COVID, and then for one thing or another, is there? There's people occupying it, I believe, at the minute. So they're unable to find anywhere big enough to host it.
No, it's that big of an event.
Yeah.
They can only really run it in that one place. So they had obviously COVID. There was a COVID that turned into a COVID ward.
Yeah,
and then,
is that what it was?
Yeah, and then after COVID, we had the war with Ukraine and Russia. So now they're using it to like house Ukrainian refugees. So there's no space in the hotel or anything. So
God knows when that's
they're looking to do another one. I'm speaking to Roy in 2025. They're looking to do another one. So fingers crossed, all goes amazing. Well, and we can get back there. But yeah, it's the biggest event in the world by far, where all of the elite fighters are there in depth. You've got especially in the open weight division, there's over 100 people in that division, and they're all wanting to win that title. It's the best, the absolute best. And I watched all of my heroes and all my idols fight in that division when I was a kid, like we spoke about just then.
Yeah.
Like we went to that when I was, I think my
The
first
climax
year.
of the whole event, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think my first year was like 2008, and then when I won it in 2020, so that's like 12 years of just watching the very best do it. And people don't actually know there's only 7 winners of the Irish Open ever in its
The
history.
same people winning it over and over
Yeah,
again.
but Raymond was so dominant in his time.
How many times did he win it?
Raymond won it 10.
most.
Raymond won 10.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Raymond won 10 years, which is absolutely incredible because I know what goes into winning one. So he multiply that by 10. Zolt Maradi had won it. Jason Borelli had won it. Roman Brundle had won it. Mike Pombero, Richie Verez, and myself were the only winners ever in history.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's the 80-20 rule there, isn't it? That's the top echelon of the elites.
Yeah.
The elites of the elites.
Yeah.
Taking all the glory.
Yeah.
And everybody else,
Yeah.
just
And
being there to
and then being able to actually go and win it as well. I mean, the feeling was just like nothing else.
I was there with you every step of it. It was unbelievable.
I remember you coming. Really, it was just to watch me, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the only reason I went.
Just to be, because you knew I was going to win it.
We knew
I knew
you
was
were going to
win
win it this year,
Yeah.
and so it
It all
a good
worked
job.
out. Yeah.
It was, and then afterwards as well. Didn't you have to get? They drug test everyone at the end.
Oh,
Do you want to
yeah.
tell us a little story about?
Yeah, so that one, after winning the Irish Open, you want to celebrate and enjoy the night, obviously, and it just didn't work out like that for me. I'd won, and they sent me straight to... I've had it done before as well. I know how the drug testing works, so they sent me to this room where I'd be drug tested, and I have to provide them with a urine sample, and you've got loads of medics there, and they're just sat in their chairs and doing paperwork and stuff. And the guy who's looking after me, he's not allowed to leave my side. Wherever I go, he has to be there side by side. If I go to I wouldn't be able to go to the toilet.
Hold it for you.
Everything, yeah. So they said to me, look, we've got all these crates of water in the corner. You're going to be dehydrated. Just keep drinking the water, and you'll be fine. And
Why could you not? You couldn't work?
Yeah, I couldn't go straight away. I mean, I'd been fighting since like 9 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Now it's like 9 p.m. So I'd been going all day fighting, very little food,
Probably
very
dehydrated.
Yeah, dehydrated. I've had all these tough fights. I think I had 7 fights to win the division, which is like the most I've ever had in one division.
Yeah.
So I'd done an awful lot of fighting, and yeah, he said like just keep drinking the water and you'll be able to go soon and stuff. So then everyone else who had been drug tested, there was a top 4 in each division. Everyone else was out of there in like 10 minutes. And I'm still there like hours in. I think it was like 11:30. Me and my dad was still there in this room, and I still wasn't able to provide the sample. And I was like, oh. So I'm still here. I'm keep necking the water. And I didn't realise how much water I'd had and how fast
How much had you had? Crate or so?
They were like 500 ml bottles. I would say I'd probably had about 9 or 10.
All right.
Which is like... me
5
not knowing
litres.
that, you'd think that, and I'd done it quickly as well.
Yeah,
and you'd think that water is just good for you, right? But in that amount, in that short space
when
of
you're
time,
dehydrated and depleted already.
yeah,
and electrolytes.
It turned so I'd had all this water, and then I just felt like I think the guy asked me to fill in my name and address on the thing because I'd ended up providing the sample okay in the end, and I was trying to fill in my name and address, and I couldn't even lift the pen. That's how bad it was. Like it was like someone was hitting me with a baseball bat. That's how my head was like boom, 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 like that. And what had happened was, when you're dehydrated, your brain shrinks.
Yeah.
So when you're too hydrated, your brain swells.
So it done too quickly, basically.
My brain had swelled up, right, to the point where it was like really bad. Like it was just causing me so much pain.
Yeah.
And I had this the worst headache I've ever had. It was horrendous. And I had this really bad sicky feeling. And then I started to actually be sick everywhere. And I don't mean just normal sick, like projectile vomiting, horror film kind of sick. It was bad, yeah. And all those guys that got what they need, they left the room. But I was nearly passed out on the floor, being sick everywhere. My dad was like, "What is going on here? What's happened?" So he took me back to the hotel room. I lay down for a little bit. Luckily, I had Raymond there. Raymond is a pro fighter, has been for a long time, and he'd actually had this happen to him.
Got you. Had he?
Yeah, he'd had it happen to him, so he knew what was going on because he'd had it before where he'd done a weight cut and then tried to rehydrate too fast after a weight cut, and it led to the same thing, like in projectile vomiting, feeling really bad, headaches and stuff like that. So he knew what was going on. I felt terrible. I stayed in bed the rest of the night, was being sick every 5 minutes. It was awful. And then it got to the point where my dad was like, right, we got to get you to the hospital. So we went to the hospital that evening, and the lady there told me that I was internally drowning, which is like, your organs can actually like shut down if you drink too much. Like you get overflowed with water basically. So the reason why I was being sick so much is because my body was trying to find ways to get rid of the water.
Oh yeah, just
reject it. It was like, that's too much water, reject it. And that's what was happening to me. So I ended up I was in hospital the next day, so we had to book all new flights and everything to come back home. We had to pay extra for having the hotel for more hours, and obviously
after all that,
the cleaning and everything as well. I was sick everywhere, so it was just a nightmare, real anticlimax. Yeah. And but anyway, we got the job done. It was definitely worth it, but yeah. Not a very nice celebration, so I'll have to go back and win it again and celebrate properly.
Absolutely. Make sure for 2025, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And obviously, a couple of years, 3 years after that, something quite big in kickboxing is going to be happening as well, isn't it? 2028?
Yes, 2020. Well, fingers crossed we get into the Olympic Games in LA.
How's that looking now? It's
looking quite promising, I think. Obviously, I'm not doing anything behind the scenes. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but from what I've heard from the WAKO vice president and president, they're saying that our chances are quite good. I think we've got like a 1 in 6 chance. There's 6 other sports, so we've got like a 1 in 6, I think, of being added into the LA Games. But I think at WAKO have got like a really good chance of getting into there. So fingers crossed, everything goes well, and we get into that LA Games, and then I'd 100% be looking to go there and win a gold medal.
That'd be amazing, amazing to addition to your already big collection.
Yeah.
So you're currently, for those people that aren't aware, which most people who follow you will be, you've recently signed a contract for Karate Combat.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how that's been going?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I'm absolutely loving that process. Yeah. It's just nice to be doing something fresh. Like, as much as I love the kickboxing scene, I always will, and I'll always be doing it. It's really nice to have something different to be learning as well, because, a lot of the techniques that we do in the kickboxing, I know them like the back of my hand. I know all the opponents the same. I fought everybody. All the top fighters in my generation, I fought them.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like a new challenge for me, something fresh, where I'm going in, I'm training new things and learning and really enjoying that
different
process
game plans,
again.
Different techniques,
totally different. And even Karate Combat in itself, the way it's set out with the pit and everything,
looks amazing. Yeah, it's a whole different
such a good setup.
Yeah,
it's very unique in itself. There's not really been anything like it before. And for a spectator, from a spectator standpoint, I'd say it's the best. I mean, you've got the pit, so you can see, it's like, especially when you're right there at an event, a live event, you can see the fighters fighting, like they're right next to us.
On you.
Yeah. I mean, I was sat around the pit watching the fights, and honestly, you can hear everything, you can see everything, you see the sweat, you see, or you can hear what the referee is saying.
Brilliant.
It's
real
amazing.
Personal experience.
There's no ropes in the way. There's no cage in the way.
That's true.
That's one of the real strong points that they've got going forward, I think, and why they're going to grow. So it's really good to be a part of that. It came about just at the start of this year because people had been talking about my achievements and things within the kickboxing. Obviously, I've got a really good relationship with Raymond Daniels, who's one of the fighters in there. I've also got a good relationship with Robbie Lavoie and Ross Levine as well.
They're all doing well.
They're all doing really well in it. They're from the same place that we've come from. So they're already familiar faces, and they were singing my praises, telling them what I've done, and that I would be a great addition.
Can't beat a referral, can you?
Yeah, that would be a great addition to the roster. So one of their guys, who was a recruiter, contacted me, and we got talking. We had a meeting and stuff like that, and they offered me a contract then. I think it was in the March or April, and I signed the contract now. So yeah, I've had my first fight, went really well. Now I'm looking forward to getting back in there and continuing on.
Brilliant. Do you want to talk us through that first fight as well? Because that was a hell of an entrance, and
Yeah.
some of the compliments from the commentators were unbelievable. You must be pretty proud of that, because I know one of the guys that I commented is a hero of yours as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the first fight, it was back in May, and I was fighting an American called Rahul Bomik, and he was a real experienced Muay Thai fighter and grappler as well.
Quite
so
different.
there is an essence of grappling within the karate combat.
Absolutely,
Obviously, more of it's striking, but you can take him down.
Yeah.
So I knew that going into the fight, that was going to be his game plan. I think was to try and put me on my back. I'd been working on that and defending that, and with my long limbs as well, I find the knee very useful.
Yeah.
And I think it was difficult for him to close the distance because I had a long jab. You know, I was using my reach very well with my boxing, and also just showing that knee.
Yeah.
Well,
the threat of it as well.
Yeah, the threat of it stops them
being
coming in, and he did. It was within the first 10 seconds. I controlled the range. I hit him with a couple of shots, and then I knew it was just an amount of time before he was going to try and grab my leg. And he did. He tried grabbing my leg. The first thing I did, people miss it because they only think about the knockout, but what set that up was when he grabbed my leg, I kneed him.
Yeah.
And it almost broke his grip.
Was that a conscious thought of yourself, or did your coach helping you along?
It was a bit of both, because
Yeah.
obviously I trained that situation where the guy's going to, and they'd only just brought knees in, remember?
Yeah.
That was the first event where we were allowed to throw knees, because before that you weren't allowed to throw knees. So that was something I had in the back of my mind, like if the opportunity's there, I'm going to throw a knee. And I knew the guy was going to try grabbing my leg, so I tried the knee. It worked because it wasn't like a substantial hit, but it definitely loosened his grip.
Yeah.
And he stopped trying to grab my leg. The second that he disengaged, then I was on him and I followed him back. I almost blitzed him with punches.
Yeah, you did exactly what you did.
And he was falling back onto the pit wall. That's a terrible place to be because it's like a slope.
Yeah.
So you can't really keep your balance. It's like you're just a punching bag when you're on that pit wall. You need to avoid
against the wall
that.
and beat up, don't you?
He put his hand down to balance, right? Yeah. And that meant that his head was at the perfect level and the perfect height for me to land the kick. So I'd seen his hand go down on the pit wall.
And you're obviously still allowed to hit,
yeah, I'd seen the level where his head was, and it was just beautiful. That's one of my best weapons as well, is I like to follow my punches with that lead leg.
Comes lovely. After the right hand, the left leg comes straight over.
So as I was retracting that right hand, the left leg went landing.
So powerful as well, isn't it? When you combine it with the pulling back of a reverse punch, you've cocked it, haven't you?
That momentum. Yeah. And hit him clean, and then he was done, and then I just jumped all over him, finished him with some ground and pound, and that was it.
Yeah,
so.
I saw you lift your leg up as well to look like you're axe kicking or stamped. What happened there? Was there
So it was like I was caught in two minds, really, because the rules say if you're on the pit wall, anything goes. Yeah. So if you're balancing against the pit wall like that, you can kick them, you can punch them, you can knee them, anything goes. You're allowed to do whatever.
Yeah.
If your arse touches the mat, then you're not allowed to kick.
Because that's classed as just being on the floor. Then,
you're only allowed to punch. It's like the UFC.
Yeah.
You can't do anything but punch, right? So he was sort of in between the pit and the floor. So it was like in a matter of like milliseconds that I realised, hang on a minute, he's on the floor.
And you were going to win
I
anyway.
had to be quite switched on not to do it, because
absolutely.
They might have let it slide. I don't know, but I'm not going to take that chance.
No.
I kicked him. I knew he was hurt. And my first instinct was, his head's there, kick him again. I was ready for like an axe kick or like a stomp kick because I thought he was against the wall. But then as he started to drop, I noticed, hang on, his arse is down.
Yeah.
Don't kick him, because this could result in like a no contest, or like I could be disqualified. So literally in that millisecond, I was like, pull out that kick and just punch. And that's what I did. Like I could have gone for the stomp, but I think with the referees maybe looking back with it on the screen, and it definitely was, his arse was on the ground. So I wouldn't have wanted that to ruin the knockout. So I pulled the kick and then just went for the punches to finish instead.
Great finish anyway. But
that
is really good. That's a good sign that you were that conscious of, because there's all these new rules. Obviously, you've had thousands of fights probably with kickboxing.
Yeah.
Everything's unconscious at that point. You know the rules inside out. You know what you're doing. But with a new sport like that as well, because you obviously weighed it up in that millisecond that I could potentially get disqualified. and I don't need to do that. He's going down, I can finish him anyway. So that's a good sign of adapting to the rules.
You've got to know the rules like the back of your hand, and that's something that I really studied as well before, because I didn't want to be making any stupid mistakes like that. And even from the years competing in WAKO, you know how strict they are in Europe with the refereeing and the judging as well. And I think that actually helped me out there, because I was like being overcautious to the point where I'm not going to be doing anything stupid. So even though the stomp kick might have looked really pleasing for the fans and things like that, like, it was better for me, just play it safe. Don't do nothing stupid. Don't get disqualified. Just punch the guy and get it done.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So.
And you did it in style as well.
Yeah.
So before you fight as well, some people may have seen that you did after that fight, I think you dedicated it to your mum, didn't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because some people know and some people don't know. If you don't mind, like, you know.
Yeah.
Sharing.
So during the COVID era, my mum fell really ill. She had 4 terminal illnesses, really, really bad, different types of blood cancer and horrible things like that. So she fell really ill, and she ended up having a stroke. I think it was in the January of 2021. And it was just really, really bad. So we really struggled with that, and it was 7 weeks before we were able to see her in person. They wouldn't let us get near her because of COVID, because they were like, oh, you know, we can't let you in because you've not, you know, we don't know whether you've got COVID. And even with the masks and the PPE and things like that, they were like, nope, you can't come in. You're going to have to wait. So there's us trying to ring up all the time to check in on her, to try and call her, but she can't operate the phone properly herself. So it's not like you can just pick up the mobile phone and be like, you know, and have a chat with her. It wasn't like that. She needed constant supervision, and the staff were just like, I don't know whether they were just overly busy at that time or whatever, but they weren't doing a very good job.
For them, I think,
they weren't doing a very good job keeping in touch with us anyway.
No.
So we didn't know what was going on. So we're having to contact them to get someone to get onto the ward where my mum was, to talk to her on the phone. She doesn't know what's going on. She can't remember anything. It was just awful. Anyway, after the 7 weeks, we were just like, right, we're getting her out of here. They didn't let her out. We got her out. We had to. We were like,
just force the hand.
We just had to force the hand. We're like, if you don't bring her out, we're coming in there and carrying her out.
Rights to, haven't you? You know,
yeah. So that's exactly what we did. Really, we just carried her out of there. We're like, right, she's not staying here anymore. She needs to come home, because you know she wanted to come home. She wanted to be out of there. She was screaming. She was crying. She hated it in there. So we got her out of there, and then it was just really just changed our whole lives, adapting the house and everything to it. You know, we had a wheelchair now, trying to cart around in the wheelchair and get her up and down the stairs all the time, doing daily tasks like washing your face, washing your hair, brushing your teeth. She couldn't do any of it. Nothing at all. She couldn't speak. Her speech was like maybe 6-7 words that she, at that time, you know, she like gradually learned a little bit more, but it's not like me and you sat here now having a conversation.
No, of course.
I couldn't have a conversation with my mom for 2 years, and she was in that condition. So to see that is like just absolutely heartbreaking. And for us, because you know, I'm an only child, we're such a tight-knit family. It was always me, my mum and my dad. You know, we just loved each other more than anything in the world. We were such a tight-knit family, and for that to happen to my mum, it was just like
devastating for them.
Absolutely devastating.
And your dad basically, and yourselves, like nursed her as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we looked after her for a good 2 years. It was, and then eventually it just came to the point where my mum had just had enough. She kept fighting, but she just had enough and didn't really, you know, the quality of life was that poor.
Yeah.
You know, she couldn't do anything. She could never walk on a beach again. She could never travel anywhere again. She could never do the things that everyone else is able to do. So, you know, I think she'd come to terms with it, that she was ready to go.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, we said our goodbyes, and my mum passed away in last August. So you know,
and now every time you fight, not only do you fight for yourself, but you fight for your mum. So there's all that passion, energy, love, commitment,
makes
honor
me even
to your
more
mum. So you're even more
dangerous,
unbeatable than ever before now.
It's like they say, when you fight a wounded animal, it's worse. Like, you don't want to be fighting a wounded animal, and that's what we are now, forever.
Yeah.
It'll always be there. That scar will always be there. That, you know, and I will do absolutely everything I can, from what I said to you in the beginning.
Yeah.
Everything I can to be the best I can possibly be, to repay my mom for the things that she did. You know, she was working those 2 jobs. She was taking me to train. There was a stage where I was going to Birmingham. I had to be there for 5 o'clock to go and train. And I'd come home from school. I wouldn't get home from school until 4:15. So we're straight in the car.
Oh, to Birmingham.
Straight to Birmingham. At that time of day as well. It's like, you know, and she'd do it, and she'd sit on the motorway. She'd take me. I'd have a microwave meal in the car before training. And then I'd be training for 3 hours. And it was in a freezing cold gym. And she'd just sit there and she'd watch me. And, you know, and she was just absolutely the best parent you could ever wish for.
Yeah.
My mom was like my best friend as well. So, you know, her loss for me and my dad was just like absolutely devastating, and it always will be.
It was horrible to see from the outside, you know, with you guys.
Yeah.
But there's also something else that happened, obviously, during that time as well. COVID happened, your mum was ill, and we started a martial arts school together, didn't we, during that time?
Yeah.
And built that up, and she got to see that as well, didn't she, before she passed?
That was
one of the things. Great when
she
came in, and that was, for me, to see that she got to see that, and she got to see you.
Yeah.
And you had your best year as well of the success as fighting, and you got to see that your son set up, and he was made his, you know, his lifelong dream of running his own martial arts centre.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a great positive from that one thing.
And she absolutely loved it when she came in. I remember that we organised it, that she'd come in and she'd see it, and she'd seen the work that we'd done. And, you know, she was just taken away by it, wasn't she? Bless her. She couldn't say much, but you could just read it on her face that how proud she was of everything. And to see it really come full circle from me being a student of yours to now running a school with you. It's crazy. So she, just to see her that proud of me, and for her to know that, you know, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be the best that I can possibly be. And the main thing is that, you know, the thing that I can take away from this positively is that I've seen the strength of my mom. So I'm going to try and take that strength and apply it to what I do. I know how strong. Nothing can ever be as bad as that. Nothing can ever, you know, nothing can ever be as bad as that. I take that strength that she had to get through what she got through every single day into what I do. So, like, when I fight an opponent, it's like, what are you? Do you know what I mean? I don't show him any respect. I'm like, look at what my mom went through. Mom fought 4 terminal illnesses. You think I'm scared of fighting some 5'10" person who's trying to grab my legs? No. You know what I mean? I'm not bothered by that. I've seen the strength that my mom went through, and I apply that to myself now. So it's made me even stronger. And when I go into the ring or the pit or the tatami, whatever I'm fighting in, I always carry her necklace with me as well. It's with her. She had a crucifix necklace, and she had a wedding ring attached to it as well. Her wedding ring, obviously from when she passed. And I take that with me now everywhere I go. Before my fight, I'll wear that, and it's just a reminder of that strength and that courage, and that really motivates me then to just destroy the person that's in front of me.
Absolutely. Well, Elijah, I think after that, this is probably a great time to bring the podcast to a wrap, mate. That's absolutely amazing. Been speaking to you today, getting insight into what you've been doing, to who you are, what you've done. You know, it's humbling to have you here from as a 4-year-old student to a grown man that you are now. It
is, isn't it? It's like, you know, for those that don't know, Lee's like my uncle. We always call him Uncle Lee. Yeah. You know, that's honestly what it's like. And we're so close. And you've been on this journey with me as well. Mate. And you've seen firsthand the amount of sacrifices me and my family have had to make to get to this point. And, you know, I'll always be grateful and thankful to you for putting me in this position. You're one of the biggest influences of my career, and I wouldn't be here without you. So, you know,
it means a lot. That
honestly, you're like family to us. So,
cheers, Elijah. Thank you very much, mate.